Brisbane has been such a big part of the conversation for Australian investors over the last 12 months. Now, we're getting questions every day around, have we missed the boat? What's coming next? And where does Brisbane sit in its short and long-term cycles? In this video, we're going to answer those questions as well as a whole bunch of breaking Brisbane down, because Brisbane's actually 5 markets within one city, and we want you to understand all of them so that you can make the best investment decision moving forward this year.
So unfortunately, nobody has a crystal ball, right? And nobody can predict the future. So we don't know what's to come, but something that we absolutely love doing is looking back in history to see how markets have performed and see if it's leaving any clues as to what could potentially come next. And we obviously know property markets are a longer term asset. So how has Brisbane performed historically?
Dude, one of the best pieces of information you and I ever stumbled on was an article by Homely where they looked at Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth over the last 40 odd years. Now, what we found from being data geeks, or me being an absolute data geek, was by adding each of those, different cities together over 40 years and then dividing it by 40, Sydney had done 9.6% per annum. Brisbane had actually beat it at 9.7% per annum. Perth had done around about the same, and Melbourne was sitting at about 9.5. So what I learned from that is that historically speaking, those big capital cities, which we already knew from some core logic data, had done extremely, extremely well.
I guess that's why they call it as safe as houses, right? So we know, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, the 4 biggest major metro markets in Australia, have performed extremely well long term. Now, a lot of people have got priced out of markets like Sydney and Melbourne, and they're coming up to Brisbane. And a lot of people that I'm talking with are feeling as though they've missed the boat. They're getting that fear of missing out, or they feel as though the ship has already sailed. Now, based on the research that you've been doing, do you have anything to say there?
Absolutely, bro. So looking at the 10-year averages of Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, now what we really need to recognise, particularly at this point in the cycle, is Sydney's not one market. It's a series of markets and suburbs. So is Melbourne and so is Brisbane. Now, some of the top performing suburbs in Sydney and Melbourne in the last 10 years have averaged 10% a year, like they've legitimately doubled in value. And that's the case for some of the great and quality suburbs in Brisbane as well. But when you start looking at Brisbane like we have, and individually looking at 280 suburbs across 40 different indicators, you start to see a completely different city within the city. Now, places within about 10Ks have cranked. I'm talking gone up by 500K in the last 3 years. And then there's some places just outside of it, like I'm talking just outside of it, between there and on the beaches in Brisbane as well, and in other parts of the city that have been historically sort of missed by the market, that have legitimately only done 2 to 4% a year. So they're coming off a much lower base in the last 10 years, which if you look at the data from the likes of the guys at DSR, when they analyse Sydney over 25 years, what you find is that, yes, the places on the beach and close to the city normally perform better first, but that ripple effect over a longer period of time does take shape. And places, which is crazy to say, a Bondi Beach versus a Penrith, statistically speaking, over 25 years, average annual performance is within 1% of each other, which is insane.
I think that's really important to, analyze that data and interpret that data to a point where you can use that to your advantage, because a lot of investors come with that emotional aspect of like, well, I grew up in this part of Sydney, so I want to invest in that version of Brisbane. And I totally understand that. But at the same time, when we're investing, we're trying to get the best return on our investment. So you need to be able to analyze and interpret this data so that you can identify the best areas to allocate your funds.
A perfect example of this, bro, is the way that you've built your property portfolio. So when Simon was getting started in 2018-19, we identified the North Brisbane beachside suburbs where Simon was able to buy 2 houses walking distance to the beach. That definitely require a bit of work. Fixer-uppers for under 400K, or around about 400 each. Then we went, when we looked back for Simon to go to his next investment, those suburbs were now worth 700K. And so when we looked at the city and really looked at it objectively, we found some suburbs much closer to the CBD that had only done at that time 2% a year for the last 10 years, we grabbed it, and over a 12-month period, that property's legitimately gone up by 30%. And this is what we're doing for clients every single day of the week at the moment. We're analyzing the city. We're not following the crowd and the forums on what's hot right now, but we're following the data into areas with massive opportunities short term, and then longer term, obviously the results in Brisbane have been incredible.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, Brisbane isn't just one big market. Just like Sydney and Melbourne aren't one big market, there's definitely sub-markets within those. And we have seen significant growth within that 10-kilometre radius of the Brisbane CBD and some of the beachside suburbs that are close to the CBD as well. But what about the other 4 areas in Brisbane that still definitely represent value?
That's a great question, and honestly the right question as well, man. So if we look at North Brisbane, it has definitely been the flavour of the month for the last 5 years. All of the forums have been hot on it because a new train station opened at Redcliffe. They redid the stations at Kalanga and Peachtree, and they're building this beautiful brand new university up at Peachtree as we speak. It's also getting a huge amount of infrastructure spend off the back of this government infrastructure boom at the moment, plus the 2032 Olympic Games coming in. The reason people like it up there is good infrastructure, great schools, good average incomes, the lowest vacancy rates in Brisbane. Like, we're talking about less than 1%, chronically undersupplied. I've heard people living in cars. So that part of the city's great. There's some really nice spots there around Strathpine, Bray Park, Peachtree that haven't cranked yet, about 19 to 20 odd Ks from the city. And then looking on Friday night at some of the northern beachside suburbs as well, there's a lot of value there still now. Knockdown rebuild houses are sort of going walking distance to the beach for that 600 to 750K mark. Really nice quality renovators are selling in that 800 range, and beautiful brand new homes are selling for well above that. So I think there's a good opportunity there. As we then go to the south of the city, that's the part of the city, because of Logan and Woodridge, that the forums have been absolutely bashing for the last 5 years. Now, I get that those suburbs were super, super rough when the average property price was 250 to 300K. But now the average price of homes in some of these suburbs is 450 to 550K. What we're seeing is a massive gentrification that's occurring that quickly. I've always said that if an area's average weekly rent goes above 450 and the average house price goes above 600, it'll completely wash the suburb within 15 years. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. In terms of performance, that is the most undervalued part of the city right now from my perspective, data-wise.
I personally love that south side as well, so much to the point where I've actually purchased my most recent investment property down in Logan City Council myself. But there's definitely still some value to the east of that Logan City Council in Redland Bay City Council, which is starting to hit its stride now as well.
Absolutely, man. Like, the eastern beaches of Brisbane around Wynnum and Manly have absolutely cranked, but some of the beaches to the northeast and the southeast, as you said, are still very affordable. And what I like most about them at the moment, outside of the fact that people earn a fortune there and most of the people living there are mums and dads, and no investors in Australia have been really looking at those areas for the last 5 years, is the difference between an unrenovated home and a beautiful brand new or renovated home. Now, in one of the suburbs we like at the moment, Cleveland, where there's a $1.6 billion redevelopment of the foreshore going on, I'm seeing houses that you could buy for 800K right now with a beautiful, beautiful reno. One of them sold the other day for 1.7 mil.
Yeah.
That is a huge value gap for those people in the market that can afford it. And then we've got West Brisbane, which is out in Ipswich. The reason we're not out there at the moment is the same reason people weren't investing in Western Sydney or Western Perth at the start of the cycle. There's still affordable, great value on the north side, south side, southeast, northeast side of Brisbane. It's only once those pockets become $1 million that the opportunity will go west, and it'll take longer for that domino to fall out there. So there are some very cheap housing out there, but there's also some very low income earners, some very average social dynamics going out there at the moment. But once that rising tide does come through and lift all of the other boats, that's where the next place to speculate will be. And to be honest, there's huge infrastructure going in, more jobs being created out there than any other place in Brisbane at the moment. The only thing I don't like is that in parts of it, a lot of investors were sold there in the last 20 years. And there's 100 years worth of land out there as well.
There's still so much value out there in Brisbane, which is a great thing. And it works for a lot of different strategies, whether you're looking for more capital growth, or whether you're looking for more cash flow, or whether you're looking for a balance of both of those things. There's still plenty of options out there in Brisbane. Now, it has been a really positive couple of years up here, which is great for the landowners, but comparing it to previous growth cycles, there is still a long ways to go. The Australian Financial Review came out in 2021 saying that they believe real estate prices will double in Brisbane between 2021 and the 2032 Olympic Games. So whilst nobody can predict the future, things are looking really interesting up here.
So the most common question we get asked every week is, well, what's the price point for Brisbane right now? And we're helping people go from anywhere in the $500,000 range all the way up to $1.1 million range, depending on their strategy, their goals, and their budget.
Now, if you're thinking about purchasing an investment property in Brisbane over the next 6 months, then we'd love to offer you a free strategy session. So head over to our website, pumpedonproperty.com, to book in that free strategy session where we can talk about where you're at right now, where you want to be in the future. We can educate you on the Brisbane market, and you can take that information and go and crush it yourself, or you could become one of the small number of clients that we work with each month. Either way, we love the look of the Brisbane market at the moment and are super excited to see how everything unfolds over the next 10 to 15 years up here. And hopefully it's as AFR predicts.
Woo! That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Have a spin.
Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. Look at that.
So nice, eh?
Oh.